All right, public announcements. Cheryl has one on closed captioning.
Hello, everyone. If you are joining us for this meeting virtually today, instructions for turning on closed captioning are on your screen. If you're joining us in person, we'll have closed captioning on all the screens here in the Sophie Muiz room. And we will ask that all speakers today, please remember to speak slowly and clearly during the meeting. This helps with the accuracy of the closed captioning. There will be multiple chances during the meeting for public comment virtually. During those times, if you would like to speak, we ask that you use the raise hand feature. If you are in Microsoft Teams, this is a small hand button. If you're calling in on the phone, you will need to hit *5 to raise your hand. Then once called on, you will need to hit *6 to unmute. If you have any questions or concerns, please find me during the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, before we begin, do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda? Hey, Travis.
Hello, Travis Mateer, 23-year resident. If any of you follow my blog, you may know that I'm a traveling man, that I've traveled many thousands of miles around this country, going to places like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where a man named Sean Stevenson was born. I got to meet his family. This is the man that was taken off life support by the sheriff's office before his family got a chance to say goodbye after he was assaulted on January 3rd, 2020, inside the Poverello Center where I used to work. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is my walking tour that I'm excited to try and start launching this Sunday at 3 p.m. And I'm going to have all kinds of books as sort of visual aids to do this educational, hopefully entertaining tour around downtown Missoula. I didn't bring all of the books. I really wanted to bring Kirsten Papp's Thriving Through Chaos book because that's one of them that I have. And it's going to be real funny the way I use that one. This one is Northwest Books. So this is from 1933. This is from H.G. Merriam. He arrived in Missoula a while ago. And it was by where the X's are. It used to be a fountain. That's pretty cool. I found that out recently. I consider this an early effort in narrative control, picking the books in the region that then would become sort of the canon. I also want to sort of acknowledge that I lack the ability to always define my own sort of character and reputation when I'm not the Missoula Current and I'm not the Missoulian, so I can't necessarily push back when I'm being defined as a person with disruptive dialogue intentions, engaging in hate speech, according to the Missoulian. And so it's going to be interesting as I become more and more famous. I talked to City Council on Wednesday, realizing that my fame keeps me from probably being able to litigate in the way that I really wanted to, because I'm a limited public figure, and I think that's really cool. So I'm going to use my fame as I continue to email Wall Street Journal reporters, the literary agent of John Krakauer. I'm almost done because in my travels, it's amazing the things that have happened. I met some guy, he's a train rider in Northern California. He has warrants out of Missoula, and he confirmed stuff I suspected about some of our people in the sheriff's office. So, it's fascinating, the things that I'm learning on a day-to-day basis about power and how it's executed in little places like Missoula, Montana. And so I'm excited to continue educating people about what's happening because my kids continue growing up here, and I don't think it's safe for them. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Travis. Any other public comment? Anybody online? Great. Okay. Today we have two hearings. The first one is about the Y2 Targeted Economic Development Plan. And Emily. Thanks. Our current claims list. Claims received as of September 26, 2023 to October 18, 2023 by the Commissioner's Office. Total $7,201,136.22. Okay. Two hearings today. Our first one on the Y2 TED from Emily.
Hello, my name is Emily Brock. I'm the Director of Land and Economic Development for Missoula County. I also staff the Missoula Development Authority, which has recommended that this Board of County Commissioners establish another targeted economic development district at the Y to foster growth, location, and retention of secondary value-added economic development projects, and to further the Development Authority's mission to promote, stimulate, develop, and advance the general welfare, commerce, economic development, and prosperity of the citizens of Missoula. So I'm going to give a quick intro and then I'm going to let Brad talk about his, Brad Archibald is here from Butte. He's helping us put together the district, but the TED designation enables us to address infrastructure deficiencies and impeding industrial growth. So the creation of this TED will enable us to fund infrastructure such as sewer, water, transportation, life safety services, and workforce housing to support value-added enterprises that will improve the economic well-being of the area. So the Y, I think most of you know where the Y is, but this TED would encompass approximately 3,200 acres. It's generally located from the intersections of I-90, US 93, and US Highway 10 west of the city. So to create a TED, the steps are, I'll walk you through them really quick. I'll be short. First, we conduct a review of infrastructure deficiencies and then adopt a resolution of necessity for the area, which the county commissioners did at their August 24th public meeting. The types of infrastructure that were identified as deficient were transportation, water, wastewater, workforce housing, stormwater, broadband, fire protection, and life safety. So the next step was to develop and submit a comprehensive development plan, which is a very high-level document that discusses the types of infrastructure that would be eligible for TIF and sets forward goals and strategies that the county can undertake to address these deficiencies. It also links the TED, importantly, to the overall vision for the county as defined in our growth policy. So then today, on October 26th, the planning board reviewed the comprehensive development plan and affirmed its conformance, including the area zoning with the Missoula County growth policy. So the step today is to open the public hearing and hold the first reading of an ordinance creating the TED. The ordinance is in your board packet. And then on November 9th, we're hoping that you will close the hearing and adopt the ordinance. We've had a number of public notifications for these meetings. What I'm hoping on the 9th is that I'll compile all of the public comments and give a report out to you guys on the comments that we've received. And, hopefully folks will also chime in. We've worked really hard with the taxing jurisdictions. We met with them starting on July 12th. And this includes Frenchtown School District, the Rural Fire District, DeSmet School, and Hellgate Elementary. And then we met with them again on September 1st, and then again on September 28th with the county commissioners. Our consultants also had follow-up conversations with them. And we did make changes to the draft to address some of their needs for infrastructure. We met with large landowners and potential developers in the area on September 12th. We attended the West Valley Community Council meeting on October 12th. And there is a page on Missoula County Voice, which is our online engagement platform. Notice was published in the Missoulian on October 7th, 14th, and 21st for this meeting. And a letter went out to all landowners within the project area, notifying them of the planning board meetings and the commissioner meetings. So this is Brad Archibald. Brad is here. He's going to do a presentation about, what is in the comprehensive development plan. And welcome, Brad.
Well,
Thank you for driving
Brad,
over.
Yeah, if you drove from Butte today, that's really,
And I'm not too bright.
Oh, it's really, really kind of you. Thank you.
Commissioner or Chair Slotnick and commissioners, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Emily, thank you for that introduction. That was very thorough and very accurate. So I must say a lot of what you're going to hear, I'm going to go over briefly because I think it will be repetitive. But of course, please interrupt me if you have any questions as I'm going. And we've talked about this some before. For the public's sake, I will probably repeat some things you've heard already, but here we go. So if we could advance the slide, please. I'm sorry, my name is Brad Archibald. I'm with Pioneer Technical Services. I'm an engineer and a project manager. I live in Butte, been working on this project with Emily and Flana and you all since May of this year. And I'm very glad to be here. So what is the purpose of the TED? Oh, presentation overview, sorry. What are we going to talk about? First of all, go through the purpose of having the TED, talk about the process that we need to go through as required by the Montana Code and some of the public engagement, which Emily has already covered very well. Show you, talk about the comprehensive plan itself, show you the boundary that we arrived at, quickly summarize the infrastructure deficiencies that were identified, talk about that process to make sure that the zoning and land use growth policy are aligned with this plan, and then talk about goals and strategies that we identified in the plan, and then talk about administration of the district should you approve it going forward. So what is our purpose? As Emily alluded to, this TED, development of this TED gives the county means through the tax increment financing to fund the public infrastructure, mostly horizontal infrastructure is what people think of, that is needed to allow this area to be developed to meet its land use, its designated uses identified in your land use plans. So this is the way to fund the development of this site, the public portion of this site, so as to allow it to be developed and used the way the citizens of this county want it to be. Next slide, please. Milestones. Again, Emily did a nice job already of summarizing those. You can see on the "We Are Here" slide, we are at the point in the process where we need to get an ordinance passed. Per the code, because it is it involves the tax code, the taxing of the citizens, we must have an ordinance from this body. We had the planning board review and recommend. We had the development agency review and recommend. We have engaged with the taxing jurisdictions. We have notified the public. We've had involvement with the public, and that has influenced what is in this plan to a large extent. And I'll point out some of those things here in a moment. But we're at that stage in the process. As Emily said, we'll need to have a second reading and close it. We must do that if we're going to make 2023 our base year, which was our goal when we started on this. We have to have that all completed by November 31st at the very, November 30th. There isn't a November 31st. At the very latest, to have it be effective this year, because the ordinance must become effective before December 31st of this year. Any questions on that process? Okay, so there next you can see the map of the area that was identified. As Emily said, it was right there at the intersection of 93 and 90. It goes into all four quadrants from there, all four, north, all points of the compass from there. It does surround, but not include, the existing YTED that was established in 2020 in that vicinity. That boundary is pretty darn close to the same boundary that is being looked at for infrastructure planning by your planning department right now, and their consultants, WGM Group, and the rest of their team. They helped a lot with the development of this plan, this high-level plan, to help us identify infrastructure deficiencies and address and determine the areas that needed to be addressed. We modified that boundary a little bit from what they're looking at to make sure we only included areas that were aligned with the zoning and the growth policy in Missoula County. There's a small area on the south end that is excluded because there was a conflict there. And I don't want to bore you with those details, but if you want us to go into it, we can. Next slide, please, Flana. Public engagement, I'm not going to go through bullet by bullet, where I think Emily did that, but I will tell you that some meaningful changes to the comprehensive development plan came out of that. Particularly, we added a focus on emergency services and fire services, and made sure that we added into our high-level plan, recognizing the need to plan for what those services are going to need to be in the future, and figure out ways and that we could try to help fund those should this board decide that's the best use of the funds in the future, to help them meet the needs to provide adequate fire safety in that area. Specifically, they pointed out the need, if this is developed the way it's intended, the Frenchtown Fire Department pointed out the need for a ladder truck and probably a new fire station. Now, we're not saying in our plan that that the TIF, the TED and the TIF from that should pay for all of that, but the TIF from this TED could contribute to that to some extent, to the extent that it serves the area within this TED. Does that make sense?
And one other thing that was added based on public comment and our meetings with some of these stakeholders was the ability for the school districts to use TED money for their planning. We heard that they struggle with planning for the future. They're school administrators, not county planners. And so we did add that ability to this comprehensive development plan, which has never been in one before.
That's exactly right. Thank you very much, Emily, for that. And another thing related to the schools that we heard very clearly from those administrators, they were very concerned about the safety of future residents, of future students, and how they're going to get from these areas to the school. So we made sure we added in there wherever it was appropriate to mention the possibility to help support development, planning, design, and development of safe routes to get kids to and from schools safely when they're there. So to the comprehensive development plan itself, the document that is attached to your ordinance, it has an introduction, of course, and a background about the vicinity, what the goals are of actually establishing a TED. It goes through the infrastructure deficiencies that were identified in the area. It goes through a pretty rigorous process and explanation of how it does align with the zoning and the growth policy. I don't want to belabor that here. Your planning board's been through that and made the finding that it does in fact do that, and has recommended to you that you pass this as a result. It identifies goals and strategies, which I'll get into here in a moment, and then talks about specific activities that the TED staff will take out to try to achieve those goals and strategies, and then administration of the TED itself. It has a very short section too on future amendments. Things change. And if you need to amend this plan, you have the ability to amend this plan.
And we already are planning to amend it to incorporate the infrastructure plan that the planning department is doing.
Thank you, Emily. So infrastructure deficiencies, Emily's spoken to it already, so I don't feel I need to repeat all of those things. So unless there's questions, we'll just move on to the next slide. The next two slides are really just to show you the land use designations, and the next one is the zoning within there that shows that it is in large part already zoned for commercial use or industrial use. There are also areas that are zoned for a residential or planned for residential, different types of residential, with the intent of developing those in a way that would be defined as workforce housing. That's why those areas, not normally would one think of those being included in a TED, but in this situation, because the changes in the law allow it, and we want to take the opportunity to meet some of the needs of the community, that's why they are within this boundary and within this TED. So, and after going through that process and defining goals, these are the 4 high-level goals that we identified within the comprehensive plan. Promote economic development and support of secondary value-added industry. That's why you do a TED. It's got to be a goal of the TED, and that is one of our goals. Invest in the efficient delivery of public infrastructure. We've got a lot of planned development up there, some for industrial, some for commercial, some for residential. Let's think about this overall and deliver this infrastructure as cost effectively as possible. That's where it dovetails with the infrastructure planning process that the planning department is working on. We specifically identified as a goal to support the development of attainable workforce housing. We have a definition of workforce. We have workforce housing identified as infrastructure in the state code. And per the last legislature, we now have a definition of attainable, or as I would say it, affordable workforce housing. And we want to, this plan is set up to allow us to invest in that. And we want to enhance public safety services in the area. And that came out of those discussions with the taxing jurisdictions, with the fire departments. There is a real need to enhance that in the vicinity. So the next few slides get into some details, and I don't know that it's proper with the time here to go into all of those strategies. And excuse me, that's my insulin pump. There'll be something's amiss, but we're good. It's sitting there not doing any exercise. But you'll see in the strategies here, the theme is planning. For all the things that we need to do, we need to have another step within this process with more detailed planning for the individual things that we want to develop in the area. So you'll see that theme through all these strategies. Another theme that you will see is public-private partnerships, and you will see identifying and leveraging other funding sources. We can use TIF dollars as matches for grants. We can use it as for a lot of things to try to leverage other funding sources. And we need to continue to work. That's a never-ending process to identify those funding sources to do this as cost effectively as we possibly can. You can go ahead and toggle through the next couple if you don't mind, Flana, unless there are any specific questions anyone has.
And one question, maybe this is for Emily. What was the vote at the planning board? Do you remember?
It was unanimous.
Okay, thanks.
So this is the buck stops slide. Who administers the TED? There's been in the state, you may have heard of at the last legislature, a lot of testimony against tax increment financing by some people, and there is a perception amongst some that these entities are autonomous and can just go do what they want to do without any real oversight, which is not true. They are overseen, and the buck stops with you, with the county commission. They are required to each year do a work plan and a budget, and that needs to be approved by you. You need to, and that's why you have an economic development authority, and that's why you have county staff to make sure that they are doing things appropriate. But the final sign off each is with the county commission. So that's the message in this particular slide. And that's all I have today. Any questions?
I think we're good. Thanks a lot for
My
coming all
pleasure.
the way over. Yeah, Dave, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. That was pretty thorough. Thank you.
He's not saying, so I think.
I think that was pretty and
Super thorough. We've talked about this a bunch, so none of this is a real surprise, but it's great to see a kind of professional stamp on it that where we were headed is actually in the right direction. So really appreciate that. And another month.
well. Sorry.
So the next, so we'll, we'd have to,
To open.
we have to do the reading. I don't know if our county attorney is going to make us actually read the ordinance into the record.
No.
Thank you.
I mean, it's in
the board packet. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So the ordinance has been published on the agenda, and we'll hold the hearing open until November 9th, and you can make a decision then. And I will report out on the public engagement and comments that we have. If you choose to, you can keep it open potentially a little bit longer, but depending on quorums and stuff and going into the holidays, that's a risky thing to do. So that's the plan, but we do need the motion.
Dave.
Can you do the
You know,
recommended motion, just so that we can make sure we check all the boxes?
Okay, I am reading from this one. Okay, I move to open the public hearing, excuse me, and hold first reading of an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Missoula County, Montana, creating Y2 targeted economic development district in support of value-added economic development projects pursuant to Title VII, Chapter 15, Parts 42 and 43 of the Montana Code annotated.
Second.
43 is the best.
Stormwater likes 42.
I know.
I will second that motion.
I
Dave
read his lips.
wrote it,
He
but we
said,
can
I
read his
second
lips.
that
He
motion.
seconds. Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Dave eyed as well.
Am I not coming
Right,
through
thanks,
on the
Emily. Thanks a
microphone?
ton, Brad. We're headed to Butte shortly, so. See you on the highway. Good to know, for an energy conference tomorrow. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Planet. So our next hearing, Callie will give to us about the Jetty Farm in Grass Valley Open Space Bond Project.
Great. Thank you. Is this on? Yeah. Hi, Kaylee Becker. I'm with Missoula County as the Open Lands Project Manager. So the hearing today is for a request to expend 2006 open space bond funding toward a conservation easement that would be held by Five Valleys Land Trust. I am going to hand it over to Ben Horan, who's here with Five Valleys Land Trust, to give a presentation on the project, and I'll follow that with a staff report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is this on? Closer. Hold it. Thanks. Thank you, Kaylee. Thank you, Chairman Slotnick and members of the County Commission. My name is Ben Horan. I'm here from Five Valleys Land Trust with a brief presentation on the proposed Jetty Farm Grass Valley Conservation Easement. For situation of the property and the project background, we are looking at about 122 acres in the Grass Valley near Frenchtown. You can see on the screen that it's demonstrated there to the west of Missoula, just southwest of the airport there. This is a property with a historic tradition of agricultural use since the late 1800s, and it continues to remain in ag production through leases with the neighboring landowners. Worth mentioning here is that the family does currently own a conservation easement with Bitter Land Trust in Stevensville, and is donating this easement to ensure that the property is conserved. Looking again here, we see that the property is within 1 mile of 2 different conservation easements. Those are displayed here in the crossed hatching, and that's the next slide. There it is. So in that 1 mile radius, we see within a mile is the Clark Fork River, state land, and 2 conservation easements. And it's also very near other conservation easements, national forest, and other elements of protected and public land. It's also, if we move to the next slide, you can see it's displayed as the green star in the northwest corner of this map. It was identified as an open space cornerstone area in the 2019 Post Plan, and it's right on the boundary of the Missoula and the Frenchtown-Huson County planning areas. The conservation values on the property are diverse. We see that there are significant natural habitat for plants, fish, and wildlife, wetlands and riparian habitats, open space lands to continue traditional agricultural practices, scenic views, and historic working landscapes. We see here a soils map from the Natural Resource Conservation Service. This property includes both lower elevation alluvial soils as well as Clay Hills Bench, which is served by the Grass Valley Frenchtown Ditch and also runs through the property. 2/3 of the property are farmland of local importance or prime cropland if irrigated. And again, most of the property is irrigated through shares in the ditch company there. The property is currently used to raise alfalfa and grass hay and is leased to the neighbors to do so. A conservation easement on this property will help ensure that the highest and best use of the property remains agricultural, whether by future landowner or through continued use of leases. Limited weeds and invasive species are documented on the property, primarily along the ditches, and those are occasionally treated by the ditch company. The wildlife and habitat value, what we see is that this is located in the Clark Fork River Grass Valley Important Bird Area as identified by Five Valleys Audubon Society. The Montana Natural Heritage Program has identified 10 species of concern and 3 potential species of concern as utilizing the property. And a June 2023 bird survey by the Audubon Society identified 48 different bird species on this and the adjoining property. In 2016, this was identified as an important bird area of continental importance due to the Lewis's woodpecker populations, and this property in particular holds specifically high-quality habitat for short-eared owl, as well as seasonal riparian habitat along the irrigation canals. There's a short-eared owl for the record. The scenic value of the property can probably not be understated. It is located adjacent to Mullet Road, an area of particularly high development pressure these days. The conservation easement itself, move on to the next slide there, allows for no splits of the property and only allows for replacement of existing structures within a building envelope near Mullen Road and the current buildings. You see the building envelope there on the western corner of the property in the cross-hatching. It allows for no splits and no commercial activities beyond agricultural recreational uses. Broadly speaking, this is a very, I guess, normal conservation easement as much as that is a concept, and it tracks very closely with our conservation easement template. Looking at the budget here on the next slide, we see once again that the CE value is fully donated in order to conserve the property in perpetuity. We mentioned earlier that the landowner does have a different conservation easement with Bitterroot Land Trust in Stevensville. In that case, they paid transaction costs out of pocket to ensure that the property was protected, and shared that they're not in a position to do that on this easement, which is why we're here asking for county funding of transaction costs and facilitation support.
Ben, just a quick question. Do you have a sense of the value of the easement if it wasn't donated?
We don't, because that it was a completely donated easement and the landowner indicated they're not pursuing a tax deduction. There's no appraisal.
Can you do like a range? I mean, I guess I'm biased because I see that this was a very big gift, and I just, for the greater public record, don't want it to be skipped over as, they donated the easement. That's awesome. But we're talking about a very large sum of money, given where this land is and its development value, that this was a tremendous act of generosity.
I think it's fair to say that it's a tremendous act of generosity. That's perfect. I would hesitate to opine on the value of the property, as I'm not.
That makes good sense.
Yeah. In this case, the open space bond ask covers most transaction costs, including a portion of the facilitation process. And additional costs of that, or additional facilitation costs, are supported by Five Valleys Land Trust, as well as Five Valleys Audubon Society. With that said, that is the culmination of the presentation, but I'm delighted to answer questions if you have any.
Sure. So I know with some easements and some landowners, it takes a really long time, and there's families involved and estate planning and legacy, and it's a huge deal. Did you all have to spend that type of time, or would this come more from the family, or what was Five Valleys sort of long-term? What's Five Valleys sort of long-term past like with this project?
Five Valleys past with this area is long running. We've pursued or investigated or had conversations with a number of landowners adjacent to this property and in the Grass Valley area about conservation outcomes for their properties. The landowner in this case reached out to Five Valleys with a strong enthusiasm for making sure that the property is conserved in perpetuity, and with that is the primary goal and focus.
That's a big deal too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So about that, how long did this take? Or when the initial contact, when was that made?
This process for this conversation has been approximately a year.
pretty darn quick.
That is
Which
lightning
is-
fast in
Yeah.
the easement world.
It is lightning fast in the easement world. That's correct. One one thing that makes this project relatively, I guess I would say smooth, is that the landowner's generosity in donating the value of the easement.
Yeah.
One of the things that we see can make projects take a longer time is when we need to source funding to purchase the conservation easement, which is something that is standard and regular and expected in a lot of cases. In this case, again, going to that outstanding generosity of the landowner, we were able to move relatively quickly.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point that you're alluding to earlier when we said this is just a regular conservation easement. Absolutely. What makes this special is the donated feature of it. That's very, very unusual. And without the, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say without the tax benefits associated with easements that are sold, I believe our easement program generally would be a sliver of what it actually is. And that's not to say lots of people don't share the values of the Jetty family, but it's rare that someone has those values so internalized and feels them so powerfully that they're willing and able to donate an easement. That's really, really unusual. And I have no concerns, totally enthusiastic about this. My only concern, not about this project, but about generally, is that we begin to imagine, well, every agricultural easement or every every easement related to habitat should be like this. That, geez, we saw this happen. Why can't everybody be like the Jetty family? And that this is a unicorn thing. This isn't. If this became the standard, we wouldn't have much in the world of easements. This is very special.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you saying that. And I expect that in the not too distant future, we'll have the opportunity to talk at more length about easements where there is a purchase component.
Great, thanks. Thanks a lot, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So I just want to follow up with a brief staff report to go over some of the kind of more public process. Okay, is that better?
Dave, can you hear Kaylee now? Or can anyone
Yes,
hear Kaylee now?
can you hear me?
Hopefully somebody can.
We can hear you now.
Great, thank you very
Wonderful.
much.
Thank you. So I'm going to start over. Bear with me. I'm just going to go over a brief staff report of some of the public process pieces that have preceded this hearing. So all open space bond projects are vetted through the county's Open Land Citizen Advisory Committee. They completed a site visit on August 29th with the landowner at the property as well as with a representative from Five Valleys Land Trust. And then they met on September 14th and all voted unanimously to approve expenditure of $34,007 for this project. As Ben mentioned, it's a donated conservation easement on approximately 122 acres, and it is within open space cornerstone as established by the Missoula Urban Area Open Space Plan, which is, as everyone will remember, a plan that was jointly adopted by the city and the county. It meets multiple purposes of the open space bond, including protecting working farms, ranches, and forests, managing for growth, providing open space and scenic landscapes, and protecting wildlife habitat. I will finish with the staff recommendation that we are recommending that this project be funded for up to $34,007, and that would cover 100% of the transaction costs and 26% of eligible Five Valleys Land Trust project staff time, for which would comprise a total amount of $6,000 for that staff time. I'm happy to answer any questions as well if you have any. Thank you.
This is such a modest ask for such a giant project. It's hard to why wouldn't anybody do backflips for this? So yeah, if you see me not asking hard questions, that's why. It's not like I wasn't paying attention.
Trying to figure out how to get to enable chat for Strohmeyer. But $34,000. I mean, this is
yeah. Mike said, my only concern is that we're setting the bar impossibly high for any other project.
Okay.
And we recognize that. I just want to make sure that OLC recognizes that, Five Valleys recognizes that. We don't paint ourselves into a corner. Well, we can't do any more conservation projects unless they come donated, whether it's for recreation or habitat or for agriculture. I'm ready for it. Thank you. We're excited. We want more projects, man. Yeah, we want to spend this money. We want to get projects done.
And we're fine if they're just ponies and not unicorns.
Yeah, right. Juan's a horse person.
No. We're gonna wait for Dave or should we'll...
Thank you. Any public comment on this?
Oh yeah.
There we go. Sorry, man. You've been so patient.
I'm used to standing in line. Ron Slater, SCH-LADER. I am a member of the Missoula County Open Land Citizen Advisory Committee. As Kaylee said, we did do a site visit on this August 29th, and we did see a beautiful piece of agricultural land out there that's now slowly getting surrounded by development. We did discuss this at our board meeting on September the 14th with very little opposition to the easement. Therefore, the Missoula County Open Land Citizen Advisory Committee recommends that the county authorize expenditure of up to $34,007 in 2006 open space bond funds for a donated conservation easement on 122 acres of land owned by Donna Ray Thompson, also known as the Jetty Farm Grass Valley Open Space Bond Project. Thank you.
Thank you. Cameo, would you like to speak on this?
Yes, thank you. I don't know if you can answer questions, so I'll just register my comment, which is I'm wondering, since the easement has a value.
Cameo, keep typing. We'll answer your question when you're done typing. I don't get it.
Now I've lost her. I can't see her question on the scroll.
So when she's talking, it's picking up. Can you hear me? This is Karen Hughes.
Hey, Karen.
Yes, thanks so much, Karen.
So when both Dave and Cameo were talking, it's picking up their contribution in the chat or in the text. When she stopped talking, it stopped typing, but I can hear them when they talk.
Okay.
You can't, it appears.
Can you restate what Cameo said?
Well, she stopped talking and then no, I can't. So
Okay,
Cameo, if you say it, it will pick it up in the chat and they can read it.
Okay, so I was wondering.
It's kind of like
it's like closed captioning.
It's the closed captioning.
It's
I was wondering.
captioning.
Okay, since I'll try this again.
Oh, here she goes.
Since the easement has a value, I was wondering how much property tax value is going to be foregone by the easement. In other words, is the county going to collect less money in property taxes off of this property once the easement is enforced?
Can I answer this? Cameo, I'd like to answer this. So
Great,
since
thank you.
this land is agricultural, it's been taxed as agriculture land, which is a very, very low tax. So the fact that there's going to be an easement on this land won't change its value. The change in value would only occur if this was land that wasn't farmed and was developable, and then the easement was put on it. So in just putting an easement on ag land isn't going to change its value for tax purposes.
And then I think she was concerned about the value of properties neighboring it.
I think this may increase the value of neighboring properties, but that's stress on the may, and that's because typically houses that overlook beautiful open space are worth more than the same house overlooking other houses. But again, that's just a may.
And can I add
Please.
quickly to that too? It's also important to note that conservation easements, I think per state law, cannot change the taxable value of the property. So it may impact how much a property sells for, but it can't change the amount that it is taxed.
Didn't know that. Thank you.
It's a good thing to know.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Cameo, does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks very much for the answers. I appreciate that.
Thank you for asking, Cameo.
Apologies, technology. Thanks for hanging in there. Is there something in the chat? I see a red dot there. Okay, okay. Okay, I move that the board approve the expenditure of $34,007 of the county's portion of the 2006 open space bond funds for the Jetty Farm Grass Valley Open Space Bond Project.
No, Dave. Great. Dave seconded.
Okay.
All right. Any public comment? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks for bearing with us on the technology. Apologies for that. And so kind of you thinking about the future to do this. An immense gift. Thank you.
Dave, you're unmuted now if you want to add something.
Can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
Closed captioning.
Nope, we can't hear you still.
Yes. All right. Everybody go do something else. Thanks, everyone. Oh.